Hello, welcome to Simulation. I'm your host, Alan Sakian, and today we have Mayoral Candidate, Angela Alioto.
Hi, Alan. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Yes, I love your red coat.
Thank you. Chinese New Year.
Yes.
Yes.
You like standing out, and you like being loud.
Actually, I wear a lot of black too.
You do?
But I am loud. I am loud.
And I love that about you.
I'm loud.
Because you want to get shit done.
That's right.
And you want to do it with passion. You want to clean out a lot of the gunk. We're gonna get to this.
Okay.
And we're really grateful because it's super important to be involved in politics. This has been something that we haven't been talking about too much on Simulation, but we talk a lot about globalization. We talk a lot about the different political struggles across United States, China, all these places. But what about your local cities? Whether you're in Minneapolis or San Diego or wherever you live, join some sort of political drive within your community and understand better what's going on, what are the issues at hand, and really get involved at a deeper level. Learn thy neighbor, all this kind of stuff. So I have lived here 6 years now, and I haven't actually dived deep into San Francisco politics yet. And I'm really happy that you and Mike and Jean Paul have really brought me back into caring about what's going on.
Important, very, very important.
Your background's fascinating. Why don't you give us a little bit of an understanding about what makes you such an awesome candidate? Well, especially your background. Let's go to the background
first.
Let's go to
my background.
Yes.
All right. Born and raised in San Francisco. My father was the mayor of San Francisco during some incredibly tumultuous times. So it was quite an experience just being around during those times, more or less being the daughter of the mayor. Started with the Summer of Love. Then we had Zebra, Zodiac, Candy Bombers, SLA, SynQ, Communiques, San Quentin 7. It was 8 years of serious terrorism when Dad was mayor, and yet he handled it like no other mayor in the nation. I mean, looking back at my father's administration, he was incredible mayor of San Francisco, incredible. And so being his daughter and his only daughter with 5 brothers, I went everywhere with him because my mother hated politics. I mean, once the front door of the house got blown up, that was enough, so she hated it. So I became kind of like the mini first lady and went everywhere with my dad. And it's an amazing liberal education.
Yes.
Amazing. So then I actually had 4 children by the time I was 25. And then my Italian husband did not want me to go to law school. So I waited until my baby, Gianpaolo, who you know, was in nursery school because it's important, to be there as much as you can the first few years.
Yeah.
And then I went back to law school when I was 29, became a lawyer, couldn't pass the bar the first time, so I decided to run for office. I finally passed the bar the same year I won the election in 1988. And I became president of the Board of Supervisors with the largest vote ever gotten in 1992. So for those 8 years, I was honored and privileged to have written some amazing legislation that was because of the amazing staff I had. We did everything. We banned cigarettes for the first time in the world. Cigarette smoking in the workplace because due to the effects of secondhand smoking. Yeah. We allowed alternative Chinese medicine, acupuncture, and chiropractic to be covered in healthcare benefits for city employees. That was a big issue at the time. We recognized chronic fatigue syndrome and other immune system problems as being part and parcel of depression, which was a big issue also at the time. So, I mean, we did some really cutting edge legislation. And then we did some fun legislation. I did the Film Commission, I did the Youth Commission, I did the children's budget that bifurcates the funds of the general fund that goes specifically to children after school activities. And I had to go to the ballot to do that because my colleagues didn't agree. And to today, those after school programs are because of that bifurcated budget. So we did some really fun things. We did a lot of environmental things, a lot of climate change issues at the very early stages. Do you know who David Brower is? David Brower was at the time the father of the environment. And then we did Earth Day with John McConnell. We started the
Wow.
beginnings of, and it all started in San Francisco. And whatever San Francisco did, it would go statewide and national. So it was really fun, especially like watching the progress of the smoking ban. I mean, just 2 years ago, the president of Ireland called me and thanked me because Ireland went smoke-free. And so, I mean, it has long-lasting effects that has saved thousands and thousands of lives. So we really had a wonderful 8 years in City Hall, and then I got term limited out, which means that I couldn't run for another term. So,
And your position was again?
President of the Board of
President
Supervisors.
of the Board of Supervisors.
Right,
Which is right now with
Right now, right. But in my day, it was a citywide vote.
And now
We
it's
don't
only
have
on the board. Now only the board
Right,
votes.
now it's district. So in other words, you can be the president of the board and only have gotten 6,000 votes. In my day, you had to get 200,000 votes
Got it.
to, and that's a whole
Different.
big discussion,
Yeah.
but I believe that the city should have at least 6 of the supervisors be citywide. For example, I could never represent just where I live. I couldn't do it. To the detriment of the other districts, I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And depending upon how much you advocate and how forceful you are, you're going to benefit your district much more than, say, the other, say, Hunters Point or the
Correct.
Sunset or the Richmond, because you're going to get more money, more funding for your district. I could never do that. It's one city to me.
Yeah.
And I could never benefit one part of my city to the detriment of another part of the city. So that's why it's different with the Board of Supervisors today.
92 to 2000 was your supervisor of the Board of Directors and all of these things that you accomplished.
No, I was elected November 1988.
88.
Started in 89, ended
Okay.
in 97.
89 to 97.
Yes.
Cool. And then
Yeah.
before that, you had all this amazing preparation from your father.
I did.
You had a really
I
good
did.
foundation, which so wired you properly for being able to handle all these different interdisciplinary
think
ways
that's
the
true.
city works, and understanding how to benefit the economy, but also how to benefit all different types of policy that occurs from kids to
Right.
healthcare, medicine, all. Yeah.
Right. I think those years of my dad being mayor was an education that I wasn't aware of until I got back into politics. I think that's very true. Yeah.
And then now 97 on.
I opened my little law firm. I didn't know what kind of law I was going to practice. My father was a very famous antitrust lawyer. 4 of my 5 brothers are lawyers and antitrust lawyers with my father. But antitrust it's a fascinating law, but it just takes too long. I like to get things done, I think that's pretty apparent.
Yeah.
I like to close the circle as quickly as I possibly can. But an African-American kid came into my office and said that Wonder Bread was discriminating against him. And so I investigated all of his allegations, and I decided that because I wrote the minority business laws when I was president of the Board of Supervisors, and the women business laws, the MBE, LBEs, WBEs, I wrote all of those into legislation so that the minority and women could participate in the contracting of the city and county of San Francisco. Since I'd done all that, I was really pretty well up on discrimination law. So I took his case, and it turned out I ended up representing 23 African Americans that got whittled down to 20 African Americans against IBC Wonder Bread, and it's the largest verdict in the history of the nation. It's the largest civil rights verdict in the history of the nation.
What was the
$135 million. The judge took it away the next day. He took away $112 million the next day.
Of it?
But it was the largest verdict from a jury in the history of our civil rights in the nation. Yeah, pretty cool.
Discriminatory because there was no brown Wonder Bread, or what was the?
No. Because there was no discrimination because they're African Americans. They were treated differently because of the color of their skin. Yes, all my.
At the where they work with the Wonder Bread Corporation.
Right.
Oh, and that's not fucking cool. cool at
No,
all.
it wasn't cool at all. As a matter of fact, my clients, I mean, to the degree where they would have to go out into the lot next door to go to the bathroom, they weren't allowed.
Yeah, that's
it was
bullshit.
really
Yeah.
ugly. And one of my guys had worked there for 40 years and had never been promoted, but he taught everybody who was in management. He had taught all the white guys in management, and they jumped over him and went to management, and he's still getting paid $10 an hour for 40 years. And we proved all of that to the degree that it was the largest verdict in history.
Why did he get reversed $112 million of
Oh,
it?
because there is a Supreme Court case that says you cannot, in punitive damages, which is damages to punish and deter, it's to make you, Mr. Corporation, stop doing this and punish you for having done it, okay? So it's called punitive damages. You can only get punitive damages against corporations. You can't get it against government entities.
Wonder Bread's a government entity?
No, it isn't. That's why I was able to get it against Wonder
Yeah.
Bread.
And then what about the 112 being rescinded? What?
No, so there is a Supreme Court case that says you can't get more than 9 times what you make in punitive damages.
Oh.
So, I mean, Alan, I could go on and on about this, but it's extremely discriminatory because let's say you make $27,000 a year, and Leanna over there makes $3 million a year. So Leanna can get 9 times $3 million in punitive damages, and you, because you make less, can only get 9 times $27,000.
That makes no sense.
It's absurd.
The damages can be way more
I think
egregious
it's so
for
unfair. Of course.
For someone of less money.
So somebody has to beat that Supreme Court case someday.
It's still legislation?
Oh yes, it's still the Supreme Court decision.
Well, we'll work on that over time.
Yeah, we'll have to work on that.
Yeah.
When I'm mayor, I'll work on that. Yeah, it's ridiculous in my opinion.
And what year was the case that you just described in San Francisco?
2001.
2001, and then what has happened over those last 15 years that is...
Well, I've specialized in
the homeless czar, remember that? That was very interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
I specialize in group discrimination. I usually represent anywhere from 8 to 20 plaintiffs. I've got several cases. My law firm right now where my daughter Angela Mia, my son Joe, my son Gianpaolo work. Joe and Angela Mia are lawyers. Gianpaolo does our mediations, and my other son Adolfo is a master chef. So they have the restaurants, Aventine. Yeah. And I
Such
have
a cool family.
I have 4 incredible children, 3 incredible daughters, 2 daughter-in-law, 1 son-in-law, and maybe Gianpaolo, we'll have another incredible daughter-in-law.
Got a good girlfriend.
Yes, she's wonderful, Deanna. So, and then I have 5 incredible grandchildren. I mean, absolutely incredible. So I did my law firm, and then I decided, okay, I won the Wonder Bread case, I'm going to run for mayor again. That was the second time in 2003. Well, it's a long story, and that's a really brutal story, that campaign. Brutal. But I just missed it by about 1%. And Gavin Newsom needed me in the runoff desperately, or he would not have won. So bottom line, after a lot of red roses from both Gavin and the other person running for office, Matt Gonzalez, they kept bringing me red roses to get my endorsement. And I told Matt Gonzalez, he bought yellow roses once. I said, no, they've got to be red. Let's get the roses straight, Matt, okay? So I endorsed Gavin on the ground, based on the promise that I would be able to do something about homelessness. Because it's so, I'm Franciscan, a member of St. Francis's Order, like I was telling you earlier about Dante Alighieri. It's so very, very important to me to take care of the sick and the poor. It's always been a big part of who I am. Yeah. So I took that job on. We created the 10-year plan to end chronic homelessness. And we housed over 11,000 people. Extremely successful plan.
Yeah.
So I've done it.
Yes.
In the mayor's race now, I know what you have to do to take care of homelessness, especially chronic, which means people living in tents.
Let's unpack that as kind of the first starting point of your campaign, because you had 11,000 people successfully over 10-year plan. And let's unpack that, because a lot of people like to know how it worked. There's sustainable, permanent, supportive housing, and then there's clinics on the bottom for them to be able to interact and sort of work their way back into a job and all this good stuff. That makes so much sense.
It does, doesn't it? It really does. It really, really does. But trying to get people, to A, understand it the way you clearly have, and B, it's a big job. Your heart and soul has to be into doing that to do it.
Yeah.
You can't just become mayor of the city and then start being a mayor and not pay attention to the specifics of how you get Joe off the street or Henry off the street. To get Henry off the street, if he's lived on the street 4 to 6 years, meaning he's chronic and he's triple diagnosed, okay, he's the hardest to get off the street.
Yeah.
The easiest to get off the street, which is the new epidemic,
newbies.
are the unaccompanied women who have a high percentage, 70 to 80% have been sexually abused as children.
And new people on the streets, right? Those are easier to also guide them off.
Well, they're
as
generally new on the streets.
Awesome.
The unaccompanied women are generally new in the sense of a year or so. If you can get someone off the street that's just been like evicted, they're the easiest to get off the street. If you can get someone off the street before 90 days, they're the easiest to help get off the street and to help them and to get them into a job situation.
Yeah.
First of all, there are so many governmental rights that a person has they don't know about. Everybody says, oh, well, everybody comes to San Francisco to get all these wonderful benefits. Homeless people, especially the veterans and the mentally ill, and vets, the post-traumatic stress is a huge issue, and the mentally ill, they don't sit down and go, oh, I guess I can go over to SSI and get all these great benefits. They don't think that way. It is absurd to say that people come to San Francisco to get benefits, because that's not why they're in San Francisco. They're in some overwhelming percentage of the present day homeless population lived in San Francisco.
This could be potentially a small problem with immigration, though, right? In terms of the benefits that people are getting from the state.
It could be a small problem with immigration.
With some immigrants coming to reap the benefits of the system, especially when they're undocumented and that.
Yeah, but generally speaking, they're paid. Those are not homeless people.
Yeah. I was just
Right.
saying there is some
Oh,
potential.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, but they're generally speaking, they have jobs, and they're paid by employers.
Yeah. Versus not having any
Versus
employment and sleeping
unemployment.
on the street. Yeah.
SSI or any of the governmental supplements.
So they need to actually be able to access people on streets, they need to be able to access their benefits and get guidance and get sustainable housing.
You would be
and all these
surprised
things.
how many people in the 10-year plan from 2004 to 2012, how many people started out in 2005 or 6 getting those government supplements and then moving into a job once they got their unit. I mean, 94% of the people we housed, because we also sent a lot of people back home that wanted to go home in the Homeward Bound program part of the 10-year plan.
Oh, yeah.
So the ones we actually housed, 94% are still in the same unit they've been in since we housed them. That's huge.
Yeah.
They're not back on the street.
That's over 10,000 of them.
It's pretty, well, no, we Homeward Bound had 4,000.
Had 4,000
Yeah.
on red, so it's
Yeah.
about 6,000.
Yeah.
Wow, whoa. So, okay, so now that was with Gavin, like homeless soaring, that was 2004 beginning?
We started in 2004. The plan came out June 29th of 2004, and Gavin went to be lieutenant governor in 2011, and Ed took over in 2011-12. And the housing we had in the pipeline for permanent supportive housing with a minute clinic on the bottom floor. That housing that was working so well in the program got taken out of, we had 17 buildings, 10 of them got taken out and given to affordable housing, no longer for formerly homeless people. So as a consequence, when we're taking people off the street, we didn't have anywhere to put them, to take them, and they would go through programs, whether it was alcohol rehab or mental health, or programs that were very successful, and then they'd be put back on the street. If a program is a revolving door and puts you back on the same place you came from, the program needs to be stopped. It needs to be stopped.
Yeah.
That program
It's not
needs
rehabilitation.
to be. No, it isn't. And it's very harmful, and it's throwing millions and millions of dollars away when we could be actually housing people or sending them back to their homes.
Oh my gosh, the budget for this is $350 million?
It's boggling, and they want more. It's boggling, and you don't need more.
Where is all the waste is crazy.
The waste is crazy.
I thought it was like something like $30,000 per homeless person per.
No, 87.
$1,000?
Yeah, a year. They could be at the
Wow.
Fairmont Hotel or at least at the Holiday Inn with breakfast in bed for the amount of money we pay.
Where is the waste going?
Now, where is the lack of common sense? I mean, what is the lack of common sense? In so many areas in this mayor's race, fundamental lack of common sense, okay? That is just rampant at City Hall. It really is. People just don't do what it doesn't take a genius to realize that police officers need tasers, okay? Tasers with an education are better than a gun.
Yeah.
I mean, no, I'm the only candidate that's for tasers with education that supports the Police Officers Association. You would be surprised the arguments you hear against tasers. It makes absolutely no sense that someone thinks it's better to have a gun than a taser. Yeah. That's number one. The other thing I think lacks total common sense is the San Francisco Police Department is not allowed to interact with Homeland Security on terrorism. Homeland Security is not allowed to interact with the San Francisco Police Department.
So
if there's a terrorist
Pier 39 issue,
exactly.
What?
Do you know that the police captain, the police chief, never knew about it?
Huh.
Because of these laws that the Board of Supervisors
Homeland Security probably doesn't know San Francisco as well as the San Francisco Police Department does. So they should work together. Why is there a law that doesn't let them work together?
Ask the Board of Supervisors. It's really a common sense, scary thing.
Yeah.
There's so much, and I don't want to use the word paranoia, so I won't, but there's so much fear of authority. See, I grew up.
And incumbency. They want to stay and they don't want to.
And they want to stay and they don't want to rock the boat, but you have to rock the boat to have a safe city.
Yeah.
We are an absolute national target. I don't think there's any question about that, from the pyramid to you name it. We are a target for terrorism. Golden Gate Bridge, the gay community, all of us. I mean, there are many different reasons why San Francisco is a target. For us not to have daily communications with Homeland Security is just simply crazy.
Yeah.
So, I mean, so much of this is going on in the mayor's race. I learned another one just recently in the mayor's race. The Board of Supervisors did a law that said the police officers cannot arrest someone who burgles your car unless the car was locked. Do you get that?
So
I don't get that.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, we're going to give
it doesn't matter if the car was locked or not.
We're
the
going to
burglary
give the thief
happened.
a nice little out. And that is that you have to prove the car was locked. I mean, crazy legislation.
You actually mentioned this to me. You said that it's ridiculous that there's not funding for specific positions. First of all, strip out funding from people that are not doing the job well, and that people have been in there for almost a decade not doing
20
more.
20 years the head of DPW. He's a nice man. He's tired. He needs to retire now.
And then hire
because
positions.
Because we need a new DPW. We need new MTA.
That's there.
People with enthusiasm that love the city.
Yes.
Keep the streets clean and stop all the tearing up of all the streets at MTA. It's crazy.
And then you also brought to light other things like hiring police officers that live in the city so that it's an earthquake city. If something happens, there's not going to be just 200 officers here because the other 1,500 are in the East Bay. So there's all these things that you've brought to light that are very interesting.
Well, we have to give them housing too.
And teachers, you mentioned as well.
Teachers and police, paramedics, and emergency services generally, like firefighters. We have to be able to give them affordable housing. Affordable housing in San Francisco isn't affordable to anyone making under $140,000 a year.
Well, there's many situations that you could find maybe a room in a house that you could live in for $1,500 a month instead of a one-bedroom by yourself in a new place.
That's a room in a house.
That's not a place for a family.
San Francisco's never been that way. San Francisco has always been family friendly, always. San Francisco's built on families.
You said that the percentage of under, was it 13 or 18-year-olds went down from like 25 to like under 12 or 12-ish percent?
I think that there's only 14% families in San Francisco.
Wow. And so they just, and a lot of the reasons why they migrate out are the safety issues, the homeless issues.
Schools.
It's schools.
Safety, homeless. I mean, safety has gotten out of control.
The
People
needle
are being robbed in the middle of the day.
Yeah. Yep.
It's out of control.
The needle in the sandbox.
We need full staffing
and the
of
kid.
the police. And the needle in the sandbox. It was a nightmare.
Wow.
Well, that example I always use because I'm the only parent in this mayor's race. And I think that that is a very, when we talk about experience, having had experience with children is very, very important. Because like when this little boy found the syringe at the park in the sandbox, they went around and gave his friends a shot in the arm with a dirty syringe, okay? It's like a parent's ultimate nightmare, okay? Yeah. One of my colleagues, whose name I won't mention, one of my opponents in this race, asked me, why would he do that? And I said, because that's what kids do. What do you mean, why would he do that? That's what kids do. Yeah. I mean, it looked like a toy. Yeah,
and
it's serious stuff.
And you're cleaning the syringes off the street yourself with the team.
That was amazing. That was amazing.
And you're actually doing it.
Yeah.
That's the thing. You got to actually do it. You can't just talk about it.
Right.
And you've done it. So
but it was such an education too, Alan. Yeah. To do it was such all the syringes we found, from syringes to feces to drugs themselves to the things that we found in just a 6 square block area was shocking. Yeah. Shocking.
Yeah. It's time to clean up the streets.
And by the way, that morning we do the clean streets. We're going to be doing them every 2 weeks, but we started 2 weeks ago. That day I housed 3 people that were sleeping on the street. One was in the park, and a couple was in a doorway, and they're both in a unit right now. All 3 of them are in a unit. Well, the single man is in a rehab, and then a unit. In one morning.
One morning, yeah.
So when I win the mayor's race, I'm going to spend the first few months out in the street housing people.
Let's talk about this, because I think this is something that is very close to me and a lot of people that are my age. Is I keep thinking about how there are so many less units, residencies for people that really need the help right now. So we talk a lot about the sustainable, permanent, supportive housing, and without any actual units or residencies or funding towards those things, it's really difficult to accomplish that. One thing that's, again, very close to me is the technology sector.
Right.
And something that I feel is a very common thread within the San Francisco is I frequently talk to people that work in the tech industry, and I ask them, have you been to the Pacific Ocean yet? And they tell me, no, I've lived here 2 years and I haven't been there yet. I ask them about, have you gotten involved in politics whatsoever? Did you know that the mayoral race is happening right now? Again, it's a big fat no, and a lot of the time. And so
let's hope they stay home and don't vote.
Well, yeah. Well, let's hope.
I'm just kidding. We want everybody to vote. I want everyone to vote.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Let's pass along the education to them and to other, especially C-level execs that have decision-making power at these technology companies that have brought thousands of employees to the city that are, yes, contributing massively to the economy, but they're also bringing a lot of Lyft and Uber drivers into the city. Right. 70,000 additional cars every single day come in to do that driving. And then with their massive multi-million-dollar profits, why don't we pool some of those profits in together from these massive technology companies and have them be a sponsor for the supportive housing? It's something that I would really love to work with you and
I'd love your help.
On.
Absolutely, that's the way it has to be done. Also, the city has several properties that we could rehab and make some SROs, the old single residence.
I've lived in those.
Yeah,
it's crazy, those.
Rehab them and make them for formerly homeless. So we do have a lot of options, but we do need to bring together, what we need to do is make sure we're spending every dollar, as much of every dollar as possible, on housing the person and not on admin. When I was president of the Board of Supervisors, I did an audit of the Housing Authority, and I was so stunned to learn that 75 cents of every dollar went to admin. 75 cents of every dollar went to the administration.
Out of the whole budget?
Out of the whole housing authority budget.
Whoa.
Yeah. It was just totally, it was a joke.
And it needs to be the opposite, if not even more.
It's right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But you know, you're talking about the voter that doesn't know what's going on out there in politics. I think there's a problem with people understanding the causal connection between being involved and actually changing the viability of a city. In other words, if you need to connect the fact that you think that street is dirty with who you elect.
Correct. Yep. And your own actions every single day.
And your own actions, but it's also that people that you elect either are doing the job or they're not.
Yes.
And your vote in San Francisco, people win mayor's races by 140 votes. Okay, I mean,
wow.
it's a
That's
very
tight.
close. People win
That's
board
really
of supervisors by 20
yeah.
votes.
Yeah, that's really
so
tight.
You've got to go vote. I mean, it's really important.
And that's one person will clean the streets, one person won't.
Right.
So then that's your whole decision, and that's why education about what's going on, and we're going to help with this. We're going to help with San Francisco. The budget is $10 billion. That is
billion.
that's more than the GDP of a lot of countries.
Of course, a lot of states, but a lot of countries. One of the opponents at the panel the other night, she was talking about adding more. She's always talking about adding more people to the payroll. And I had to stop her. I said, wait a minute, before you're doing all this adding of people and taxes, hold on, do you have an understanding that $10 billion, $1 billion is 1,000 millions?
Yeah.
1 billion is 1,000 millions, and you've got $10 billion for one city. It's crazy waste.
And it's 7 by 7 square miles.
It's crazy waste. Okay, we don't need to add a lot of new employees. We need to make the existing employees do their job. Department heads are key because they're running their own fiefdoms, literally.
Yeah.
Literally, because they haven't had a mayor in recent years that they thought would fire them, and they were right.
Yep.
Which is why they're not voting for me, because I want to put Humpty Dumpty back together again.
And reverse, it's not going to be 75% of the budget is going to.
No, that was the housing authority, which is a different entity.
But that still happens with
horrible.
other budgets as well,
You know,
where so
we
many
have to
costs
look
go to
into
admin.
that. I don't know what it is today, and by no means am I saying the housing authority is that bad today, but it was when I was president of the board.
DPW, MTA, they're
Park and Rec.
So DPW is responsible for keeping the streets clean.
Right.
And that's kind of why the streets aren't clean
right
now. And MTA's tearing up a lot of the streets, and they're taking, this was so interesting when you mentioned this, because my uncle and I talk about it all the time, that all of a sudden you'll see that the company that was doing the construction on the street now has, we have more budget, we need to spend that budget, what are we going to do?
They'll tear up what they just did. It's insane waste.
And they're getting it's insane waste, and the traffic, that's 70,000 additional cars, Van Ness is torn up right now, it's like, come on. China can build a world-class convention center in Tianjin in freaking 9 months.
Right.
And the escalator at 24th and Mission has been out for the last 6 months.
Right.
And it's not cool. It needs to be fixed.
It's not cool.
And especially with technology.
Cool.
Because a lot of the people that you mentioned, you said the average salary to be able to sustainably live in San Francisco is over $100,000. A lot of those roles are technology company roles that they're bringing in thousands of dollars. They're buying out these buildings. We also have responsibility to work with them to help solve these issues. And that's something that's really close to my heart of wanting to solve and get these 25-year-olds that are making $100K doing programming or designing and stuff. I really want them to get more involved, and we will do that. We will make San Francisco has the potential to be a model city with arcology, focused on ecology and architecture, transit systems that are super good, healthcare systems, housing systems, all this stuff. And it's just we're not there yet, but we have the ability to get there.
When I was president of the board of supervisors, this city was beautiful. It was clean. We had the homeless situation somewhat taken care of. You never saw tents are brand new. Tents happened after Occupy SF. Mm-hmm. Remember Occupy SF?
Yes.
Okay, so the homeless saw these people that were Occupy SF, rebelling against the government, they saw them buying tents.
Tents to live in,
And they thought, oh, that's an idea.
Easy for them to transit with it too.
On the other hand, you don't want people sleeping in, cold winters or anything like that. We need to give people a place to sleep and try to get them on their feet so that they can have a productive life in the city. But when you're talking about that one person that doesn't know, the young kids that do make that kind of money, I think the internet age is incredibly exciting as it is, has also brought about the person are just into the telephone and into the computer and not necessarily noticing the dirty streets. Then when they get married and have one child and they realize the streets are filthy, or when they start to go see the Pacific Ocean and realize, hey, wait a minute, this street is really filthy. But it takes like a tipping point, like Malcolm Gladwell's tipping point. It takes something that makes them realize, wow, this street is really dirty. To kind of get them out of their own world of the internet, because the internet is the IT young kids that are all over San Francisco, they really are in their own world, and that's great. But when they wake up from their own world and realize that guy's shooting himself up with a syringe that's very dangerous, these are serious. The city has some of the worst problems I think it's ever had, and I'm coming from an era where we had, terrorists, homegrown terrorists, like the SLA and SynQ and the rest of it.
Let's educate about when all of this is happening. So when people can get involved? AliotoForMayor.com.
AliotoForMayor.com. Our headquarters is at 700 Montgomery, and we have a new headquarters opening at 166 West Portal.
Cool.
The west side of the city is extremely important to me. And I want to make sure that we answer all of the questions that we need to answer that are very, very different questions from the west side to the east side to the north side and the south side. Very different community issues, very, very different. And so it's very important to me to make sure the Chinese community, for example, is very, very important contingency in this particular mayor's race. And so we're reaching out as much as we possibly can and doing, I believe, a very good job there. But
the Irish community, when I learned that they really want the monument at one of the piers.
Well, how easy was that? Explain that to your audience, because that was so easy.
Attending the Irish community when we had the debate there, the moderator is Irish, and then the crowd is
more than half of the crowd is at the Irish Cultural Center, which my father opened, which was fun to see the photographs at the end.
That's right. You mentioned that too. That's so interesting, because this is such a multicultural city, and that is the reason why they want the monument, because Irish came and did so much work to build out. You can explain this better than I can. I don't know
Irish
enough
and the
about
Italian, the Chinese, and of course the Mexicans. I mean, everybody worked together in those early years and really built the city. They were the builders. A lot of the Italians were the bankers. A.P. Giannini started Bank of Italy and then became Bank of America. And that was after the 1906 earthquake, because none of the other banks would give money to people without collateral, and nobody had collateral because the buildings were on the ground, and so they didn't have valuable collateral or any assets for that matter. And A.P. Giannini literally gave out loans, so we became the financial and the legal center of the west of the Mississippi, and now we're the internet center of the west of the Mississippi, but. Unbelievable, wonderful cultures in this, unbelievable. And the Irish and the Italians, they always seem to have migrated the same time. It's very interesting, to Boston and then to the West Coast. So all Mr. Birmingham wanted, all he's wanted from the city government was this monument to the potato famine, which is monumental in the eyes of the Irish and monumental in the worldview eyes. Kenneth Clark, in his series on civilization, talks about the devastation of the potato famine and what it did to the world.
1.5 million people, or was it more than that? That's
really,
a lot.
I think that's what he said the other night.
And
So
how simple is that?
monument. How easy is that?
And we built so much of the city. Please just give us a
Yes,
yeah.
give us a monument to celebrate or to honor and respect the people from that time. Well, that's why so many Irish came to America, was the potato famine.
Yeah.
So it's very symbolic to all of the
Yes.
Irish that are here.
I love the multicultural aspect of the city. I can't get over how cool it is to be able to just drive into different parts of the world, basically, or walk into them, and it just feels so cool to be able to do that.
Yeah. See, I think that's kind of the upset I felt when I decided to run for mayor. It's that some of the people, if not a lot of them, in City Hall don't understand that, and yet you do, and you're kind of new here. In the sense of you've been here 6 years. They don't understand the multiculturalness of San Francisco and how it's important that every culture be treated equally and that not one be put over the other or one be ignored. Very important.
Yeah. And to provide such simple things like just being able to build a monument to represent something so important to the culture that's helped the city so much.
Right.
And it just seems like so easy. That should be the snap of a finger.
That's
really.
what I said. I said, Kevin, where do you want the monument?
Yeah.
The guy, the MC of the evening was bemoaning his outcast state about how they just won't give this monument. So I just turned to him and said, Kevin, where would you like this monument? In other words, an elected official can easily just say, where do you want it? I'll do it.
Yes.
I mean, I can't tell you how many times people came into my City Hall office and I look at them and go, that's really horrible. Let me fix that right now. You know, the one that comes to mind, I had some that were really tragic. We were at the very beginning, and well, not the beginning of the AIDS epidemic, HIV and seropositive situation where people were afraid to be in the room with anyone HIV. And I was not. And so I had I did so much HIV legislation. We added so many medicines to the federal ADAP list that they wouldn't let them have it. We went down to Mexico and got medicines, which was probably an illegal act, thinking back on it. But people were dying in serious pain. And so they would come into my office and they would say, you know, my lover is dying or my partner is dying, and they won't let me in the emergency room. I fixed that in 2 weeks. Took me 2 weeks to undo that shame, that someone that close couldn't be in the emergency room because they weren't, quote unquote, a husband or quote unquote, a father, mother, or brother. At that time, we literally had 1,000 young men a week. I will never forget the headline of the BAR report, the Bay Area Reporter. 1,000 in 1 week died. And we were in the middle of this massive epidemic.
Whoa.
So it wasn't like I'm going to take my time and get those medicines on this list. That's also when I legalized medicinal marijuana. My husband died very, very slowly and very painfully from cancer, stomach cancer. He was a chef like my son, Adolfo. Towards the end of his death in 1990, UCSF had given him a little can of, literally of joints that were cut, very clean, and he would smoke them and he would be able to come downstairs to dinner. He would be able to communicate with his friends. He had hundreds of friends, and his 4 children. And then UCSF took it away. And here I am, a supervisor of the city and county of San Francisco, left in the position of having to get marijuana, which was totally illegal. So I legalized it for medicinal purposes. And I stand by it. It's the first time in the first law ever written for medicinal marijuana. Important stuff. People shouldn't die in that kind of pain. Not to get emotional on you, but you know, all these young men were dying. It was just, you know, and then Ryan White died. And Ryan White funding, I was living in Washington, D.C., getting the federal funding for the AIDS epidemic. And we did really, really well. The medicines that we got put onto the ADAP list, the federal list at the time, eventually created the cocktail that, of course, is saving lives. We did great work, but we did it. We didn't talk about it.
Yeah. Yep. That's the biggest differentiator that I felt from you. I can't get over your energy and enthusiasm about actually getting it done.
Well, because it's so great to be able to help people.
Yeah.
It's so great.
Yeah.
You know, we had I wrote a book called Straight to the Heart, Political Cantos, based on Dante's Inferno, which is Dante's hell. Okay, and I literally put all the politicians that did nothing in a time of moral turpitude to act. I put them all in the layers of hell. Mm-hmm. It was a bestseller at the time, and I'll have to get you one. You would love it. Unfortunately, a lot of the politicians are still alive, so they're mad at me. But having said that, it was such a time to act because of the emergencies of what we were living through, and people did. They either did, or I would take it to the ballot and win at the ballot. Okay. What the Board of Supervisors is addressing today is bad, but it's nothing like that.
Your fire for getting things done it burns so bright.
It does. It does. It does.
What else? Maybe we touch on this. I think this is important to touch on the construction of new properties and how we should go about that. It seems to be that overall the idea of increasing housing is really important, but placing them in certain places is also really important. Near transit lines is important, but it's also putting in a certain percentage of the units to be able to be afforded by teachers and firefighters and paramedics. All that good stuff's really important. So, like, what's your plan for that?
Well, when we did the housing for the formerly homeless, some of the buildings that we did had like 300 units in it, and we would do the first few floors would be formerly homeless, then there would be below affordable housing, and then affordable housing and the market rate at the top.
Tiered up, just like
exactly.
that.
Mixed housing, mixed
housing.
use.
And you have to work with developers to be able to do that.
Totally works.
Yeah.
Totally works. And there's been some of it done, but nowhere near enough. And of course, the formerly housing have been taken out completely. It's very, very rare to find units.
Because I see all these new 5-7 story kind of condo buildings going up, and I don't know if the developers, it seems as though they're probably sacrificing 50% of their profit.
Not 50. It's right now it's 18 to 20% of the building is affordable. The issue is whether it would ever go higher. That's the big fight right now, is to get it higher.
That's not even that. But yeah, that's not even that bad for what is the percentage? Because I always think about shareholders are always trying to figure out a way to maximize. So what is the 20? What out of that 20% that is affordable housing? How much lower is that than, let's say, the $3,000 per one bedroom sort of?
You have to make $130,000 to live even remotely comfortably and affordable in what we're calling affordable. That's my point. Affordable isn't affordable. I mean, affordable isn't affordable, especially if you want to get married and have children. It's just not affordable. However, you talk to developers, and I've talked to so many developers, and I understand their frustration absolutely. They can't get permits. They're told they can go ahead and do it, and then 10 years later, they've got a hole in the ground. They haven't been allowed to build. The planning department permit process has to be brought into a one-stop shop, so you get everything in one place and get it done. Yep. That's another area where just get the job done. Yep. Or don't let them build. In other words, don't tell them, yes, you can build here, and then hold them up 10 years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you're going to say, yes, you can build here, then give them the permits to build.
Yep.
Assuming all safety first, right?
Yep.
But I have been speaking to a lot of developers lately, and they'll tell me, even at 18 to 20% affordable, in a building that, say, has 125 apartments, well, each of the 20% affordable is a $600,000 loss.
Over the span of?
To the developer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is, formidable. So somebody needs to either be able to develop more efficiently,
or develop, like we were talking about, with the intention of taking some of the Google, Facebook, Salesforce, LinkedIn money and just being like, hey, let's put this to really, really well-made, sustainable, permanent housing for homeless people and for people that, teachers, police officers, paramedics. It seems like that's the absolute right way to go for me, because I just feel like they've done such a good job at maximizing their value to the world, but also the amount of money that they get from being, you know, software driven, and then they don't even need to have a physical, tangible product. It can just be digitally made on your computers and things like that. So, you know, if they can afford to pay $150,000 salaries and have all of the amenities that they have, they can also afford to help the city that they now all live in. And
Alan, the point there, on top of exactly what you're saying, is they're very, the IT billionaires in San Francisco are extremely philanthropic. They give. Our hospitals. I mean, you know, our hospitals and something really essential.
Benioff and Zuckerberg.
But what's really important, and they're extremely generous, okay? Nobody is saying they're not. Here's the problem. The IT, the government, and the community neighborhood people are not in the same room, okay? If you put all three of them in the same room, then the IT people would understand we need the money to go towards this, this, and this. In other words, you really don't understand what we needed to go towards. Like infrastructure of the city streets.
Well, for example, how would you brand Benioff or Zuckerberg on cleaning the streets? That's another interesting point. Is that
Mark Benioff's a friend, and so I don't think I'm. You know what? I don't think I'm going to brand him anything.
I'm not trying to. I'm just making a thought-provoking comment. I'm not saying.
I want to bring him to the table. I just want to bring them to the table and say, look, this is what we really need, okay? Not kind of what you all want to pick and choose what you want to give to, which is great that you're giving, but this is what we need for you to give to. For example, when you bring 3,000 new employees to town, they don't have housing, the infrastructure of the streets is a nightmare, and they're using the streets, right? And we've got this Uber Lyft chariot problem, where there are 70,000 new cars on the street, and there's no give back at all to the city. There's no business tax. There's no nothing. Now, I'm not a big taxing person, but Uber is a business. Lyft is a business. Chariot's a business. They should be taxed.
Yes. And not have the tax offloaded onto the driver's salaries either.
That seems to be a big issue right now. How much are they really being paid?
I've heard very low.
$3 to $8 an hour.
I've heard also up to 30, which is why people come from Sacramento and sleep in their cars and that kind of stuff.
Well, the one gentleman I had the other day was from Bakersfield. That's like 8 hours away. It's like Bakersfield
to come make money. So, all right, we'll wrap it up with a couple quick quickies. So, when is the election?
The election is June 5th, and the fascinating thing about this election is that it's instant runoff. In other words, there'll be no runoff. If a first person doesn't get 50%, then they count the second. So you will vote for 3 people for mayor. And
you don't have to vote for 3 people. You can vote for just one if you want.
Yes. Yes, but they will go to number 2 or number 3 if the person doesn't get the percentage.
Okay, and so June 5th, and the work that you can do is
come to our headquarters. We're at 700 Montgomery, aliotoformayor.com. We're also at 166 West Portal, and we would love to have you come down and help us out. We have dozens, if not hundreds, of volunteers at the moment. We're going to be calling starting, in April. We're going to be calling all of the voters and asking them if they've voted yet, because absentee is a big issue, and absentee ballots can be out there from the first week of May until the election day itself. If people need a ride to the polls, that's what I used to do as a kid. When I was 16, I used to drive everyone to the poll to vote for my dad. And you don't see a lot of that. But our campaign's old-time campaigning. I'm doing billboards and bus stops and old-time campaigning. I'm going to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to go to Glen Ellen, transit and hand out my flyers, and it's
Wow.
old-time campaigning,
Yeah.
in my opinion, works.
Yeah.
And as a consequence,
Yep.
that's what our campaign's doing. So we need a lot of volunteers. We're going to do door hangers. We're going to do everything that we can do to get our message out to the voters that we need to fix all of these bad things that are happening to our great city. San Francisco is one of the most beautiful cities in the world. It is one of the places everybody they left their heart.
Yeah.
I mean, the song says it all. Today it isn't. Today you don't leave your heart here.
Yeah.
Things are not good right now, and it's the first time in my entire life I can say San Francisco is not being a livable city, and it's not gorgeous like it's always been. But it easily could be.
Yeah.
You have to get the determination to do it.
And Angela has that.
And I have that.
And if you guys, also another good way is just to go to an actual debate and go and see them speaking.
Participate.
And participate, just go see them speak and learn about it. So maybe just a couple quick questions for you. You can be quick with them so we can move on. These are kind of our fun simulation questions.
Fun simulation questions.
So
am I going to read about these fun simulation questions?
well, they're fairly fun and easy. I think so. You can give yes or no, or explain as much as you want. But are we alone in the cosmos?
Are we alone in the cosmos? I asked you before when I heard that question, kind of, whether is this a religious question? No, I don't believe we're alone in the cosmos.
You think there's other conscious life somewhere around other stars?
I think that it would be very egotistical of us to believe that we're the only galaxy.
Yeah. And then how about, do you think we're in a computer simulation? Do you think we live in one?
I'm not sure I know what that means.
Just like an advanced civilization gets enough power and processing to be able to harvest the power of their star or something, to be able to simulate the reality that we live in. All of our cells, all of our atoms, all of our
I hope not.
conscious thoughts.
I hope not.
You hope it's base reality. What do you think?
I hope not. Did you see that story on 60 Minutes about the cloned polo ponies? Fascinating.
I need to look at
Oh
this.
my gosh, you should see it Sunday night. There's this guy in Argentina, his name's Adolfo, has cloned his entire polo team, and the #1 winners from one horse.
Oh, whoa.
Oh, you have to watch it. It's 60 Minutes. The guy was incredible, and it's just amazing what he's done. And now he's winning everything with an entire team of cloned horses. It's so... I was going to say Alfred Hitchcocky or Twilight Zone, but it goes so far beyond all of that. I had no idea that kind of cloning was going on. No idea.
Take traits for humans, for intelligence, for metabolism, for all these different things. And what kind of a future will we live in at that point? These are the thoughts that we also like having on here. It's really important to dedicate time to our city. What do you think is the most beautiful thing in the world?
Your smile.
Oh, you're so nice.
What do you
Thank
mean?
you. Your smile is beautiful as well.
You know what I mean? What is the most beautiful thing in the world? Probably, what is the most beautiful? Probably a newborn baby, or
That's cool.
I'm very religious, so I've been a member of St. Francis's order since I was 15 years old, the secular order of Franciscans, and St. Francis lived his whole life taking care of the sick and the poor. He believed that everything was the face of Jesus Christ, or the face of God the Father. Everything, from the flower to the donkey, everything represented God and was beautiful.
And that's very true.
He lived an amazing life, and 800 years later, after millions and millions of people who have been sick and poor have been taken care of by his order, the Franciscan order, it's a joyful life. It's fascinating how joyful his life was, being married to Lady Poverty. Poverty to St. Francis of Assisi was joy. So when I go into all of these tents and I sit down and talk to the homeless people, I totally understand what Francesco was talking about when he would talk about the joy in the face of poverty.
Because the truth is that sometimes people don't really want to be strapped down to a 9 to 6. They kind of want to be able to live freely in a different way that we sometimes don't understand. So there's a whole different conversation that needs to be had with every single person and figure them out and figure out how we can help.
It's really been kind of funny. There is one lady running for mayor who often mentions St. Francis, and I don't correct people or anything, but I am a Franciscan. I am a St. Francis himself street scholar. I mean, literally, okay? He has been my best friend since I was 15 years old, literally. So she's talking about, well, St. Francis wouldn't let those people live on the street. And I'm thinking to myself, is she kidding? St. Francis would be the first to join the family on the street. He was not into making sure someone had a house. He was making sure that someone understood the joy of God.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, so he would not be housing homeless people. He would be taking care of them, but he would not be necessarily housing them. He himself lived in the desert, lived on the mountains, was a hermit for 6 months of the year when he wasn't out trying to take care of the sick and the poor. So it's been really fascinating having this one lady in the race named Amy quote St. Francis as someone who would be housing the homeless.
You have so much experience, you have so much energy, you have so much passion. We definitely recommend checking out AliotoForMayor.com.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Angela,
thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Such
you
a
so
pleasure.
much. Really was. Sorry I couldn't get to the Cosmo question because I'm not sure about any of that.
We were crushing it on everything else though.
We were.
Yes.
On everything else. Then you started the Cosmos. I don't know.
We're gonna work.
I don't know.
We're gonna work together, and I really hope to see some great, beautiful change in the city.
Thank you so much.
Thank you everyone for tuning in. If you had a good time, give us a like, a subscribe, a comment. Please go and share the content with other people. Get them inspired to make political action, economic change, or community change in their nearby communities. And